Uh, Good evening, everyone, students, colleagues, and guests, and welcome to today's lecture by our guest professors, Avenier Cornejo Architects, Christelle and Miguel. We are very glad to have them here. They joined TU Vienna this March. With some sort of very special collaborative and design research guest professorship, where they're challenging the students with rethinking the future of an empty office building in Paris. And the course is titled Old is the New Ecole. Somehow this occasion here is pretty special. I'm welcoming you today on the behalf of the Institute of Architectural Design, not any department, because we somehow, together with Wilfried Kuehn, we joined forces last spring and summer while being two members of the international jury for the Brick Awards, which are celebrating the best architecture that is challenging the future of the use of bricks. And we and Avenier Cornejo were one of the couple of winners of that particular award. And that this was the moment that we somehow proposed and established ongoing collaboration with Wienerberger as our research partner, where we would like in the future, with guests from abroad and from here, try to address the potentials of the materiality through bricks, what could be the future of building them with them, and what's their role in the material lab that we are trying to establish as the institute. So that is how it happened. And today we are happy and looking forward to your lecture, where you are presenting the architectural and theoretical approach of your practice. Based in Paris. As far as I remembered, you come from two different countries. Christelle was born in France, and of course Miguel not in France, but in Chile. They met together at the Ecole Supérieure de Paris de Malaquais, which we visited a couple of years ago with students and did a lot of research on that school. And then they founded their practice in 2008. So they have behind themselves some years of intense experiences, which we will hopefully see tonight. I would not like to, they of course, in addition to winning the Brick Award 22 in the category of living together, that was housing. I think it's important because we were trying to compare similar typologies and seeing which of them on very kind of complex level addressed the best this idea of living together, which is of course also the project that you see on the poster. They have won many awards and many competitions, and they have been dealing with public and private commissions of different scales. They are very much focused of course, in the living, in housing, but they are very profoundly working with the materiality. Therefore, such a beautiful title of today's lecture, Materiality as Identity. Would you like to add something, maybe, Wilfried? No? So I would like to warmly welcome Christelle and Miguel for their talk. Thank you for coming.
Well, for us it's a pleasure to be here, to be guest teacher, and of course we want to thank Tina, Wilfried and Katharina for their welcoming in the school. And so we are going to start the presentation. But first of all, I just wanted to say that with Miguel we were students together, and we worked together since the second year of school. Just to tell you, like, if you have some similar experience, you can keep going after school, so be careful. So, materiality as an identity, so that's a fingerprint. So we can find some similarity with the skin of a human body and the skin of a building. And here it's a fingerprint that gives you a unique, a unicity, and it's something unique and that defines your identity. So of course, if we take the materiality of a building as a skin, it's also something that's gonna define the identity of a village, of a city, of a building. And of course, there are some different aspects of this that define the identity. And for example, the geography and the landscape. And here it's in Turkey, in the Cappadocia, and we have the troglodyte village and architecture, and it defines a complete vision of this village. Also, this kind of village, it's in the Alps, not too far from where I'm born, and the fact that people are using the material, the local material, that give a similarity of the house and the landscape. It melts together, and it's like a symbiosis somehow. And into the wild, because you have the tool that you can find, the wood, and it can be the image of the outside, but it's also the image of the inside. And the materiality, it's geographic, it's the landscape, but it's also social. And for example, in Paris, we have an image of this brick construction, and it's called Habitat Bon Marché, HBM, and they were social housing. It was 100 years ago, but nowadays they are still there. It's a good quality construction, and they are quite remarkable. The materiality, also still in Paris, the zinc, it's material that we find on a lot of roofs on the skyline of Paris, and it defines also not just only an area, but it's the full city. So the geography can be quite large. This materiality can define a large perimeter.
Can you hear me? Yes. And well, we also understand materiality as a language. We're made, of course, of materials like concrete, wood, coating, or bricks, and so weiter. That, of course, influence the structure of the building, that create the shapes, the form of the building, but also it also carries a meaning and an identity that can tell us an history. So as a language, materiality can tell us a memory, a feeling, even an emotion, and that's why we think about this Einfühlung, where Heinrich Wolfin described this feeling of this connection with the work of architecture and this picture, this fusion that create also this entity. And that's why we like this picture of Helmut Newton with Beckstrom looking for Paris, but looking at herself because there is a fusion. Now she is part of the city also. And we think that materiality have this power of creating this connection. And of course we have this individualism image, but also we think that it can be also social. We live in a street. We can make together a party. We can have common place where we can make experience and make fit a feeling that connect us to the city. And another topic that we like to develop, or that we try to develop, is this space between, always linked to material. We like to also think about the emptiness, the void, and this space between can be shown with the exterior. That's why we wanted to show this Moriyama house from Ryu Nishizawa, where the connection with the public and the private place is blurred. They are melted. You can see this plan, and there is no limit. There is a blur without between the in and out, the private and the public space. And in the same idea, we wanted to show also this Terrassenhaus project from Banhuben in Berlin that you should know, and where we have this common space that make the materiality, the final materiality of the building. That is what we trying to search sometimes.
So we are coming back to our production, and we are going to try to link all this reflection, and we are going to show you some few projects that we choose and that are in Paris, but also in Greater Paris. So I will start with one of our first projects, and it's a small house for private client. It's a family house, and the materiality here in this project is linked to his natural environment. The project takes place in a very natural place, and it's just by the wood, and we took the shape of the commune house that we find in this village, which was a classic roof and a classic shape, but we choose to use only the wood. So we put the wood on the roof, on the facade, on the shutter, on the floor, on the exterior floor. So it was a unity. This family was suffering of not having enough light from their previous apartment. So even if we had quite a square and simple shape, we worked the shape inside. We sculpted it. We took some wall, and we tried to bring the light inside. And also, as Miguel said before, we try to make a connection inside, outside, and here it's in a bathroom, so we thought it would be nice also to have an outside place even in the bathroom. And we make a large and generous opening from the living room through the outside. And you can see on this picture that the shutter, and when you close all the shutter, it's like a wood box. And here on the terrace, on the first floor, we can see the close environment, which is the wood, and the house that takes place there. Another project, this one is inside Paris, in the 12. It's a BPOS project, housing with positive energy, and it's a social project, social housing, 22. And here the materiality is is urban connection. So we are in the 12, it's quite dense, and we have 2 buildings on each side of the boundary. The boundary is quite small, and we have a speciality on this boundary. It's stick a bit out, so we had no choice. We had to follow the limit, and we deal with it with some round shape to make it softer. So on this connection with the materiality, we choose the brick because the neighbor was already there. It's an old building, and we thought the connection would be softer, but we add some vocabulary, which is a grilled and a little ornamentation, which is something that would be repeated on all the facade and would give it its contemporary aspect toward the antique neighbor. So on this picture, we can see how we have round corner and how we go up on the upper floor. Also, we were thinking, okay, we have this connection. We find a color, we find the brick, we find a grilled, but we want to add something more. We want to add a little bit of ornamentation that would give it a little bit of richness, like a bit of a zip, because it's a social housing. It's quite a big building, not a big building, but it's quite dense. So let's put a little bit of fantasy. And we look at the city hall. The city hall was having a little bit of a blue drawing, a dark blue drawing. So we thought, okay, let's try, and we're gonna try to make a little bit of ornamentation. And so we decide just on the upper level, just like an exception, to put this little ornamentation, which in this case give an identity to this building. And sometimes we met some friend and they say, we saw the building with the little blue ornamentation, so we are like, okay, so it works a bit. Inside the building, we use terrazzo, and we use it, of course, on the horizontal on the floor, but also on the wall. And we like to give some generosity inside the apartment, and we bring, whenever we can, we try to bring some light. So here we succeed, not all the time, but we succeed to bring some light and natural ventilation inside the bathroom. Another project. So here the link with the materiality is a link with the history and the memory of a place. So this project takes place in the north of Paris. It's in Pantin. Some of you have been there, and so you will recognize it. And it's a project with 3 buildings and 88 family apartments. So I told you, in this case, the materiality would be a link with the history. So just by the project, there's a big building who is still there, even if its function changed, but the building is still there, and it was Les Grands Moulins, the big wheel, I think. And it was where we used to make the flour for the bakery of Paris and of the Greater Paris, and it was transport then on the canal. So in this city of Pantin, Les Grands Moulins, it's an institution. Everybody knows them, and they are proud of it. This building is in brick, so we thought to to bring a new building here, we need to find a link, and with this history, we thought for us it was obvious to use the brick, and so it was a competition. So we work with the brick, and we put three buildings. And two are connecting with quite a big garden. Here is the canal, and here is the Grand Moulin. So we use a vocab, a commune vocab, which is a grid, an ornamentation, and an outside for all the apartments. And to get a proper identity for each building, we give them a color. So we have a red, a light gray, and a dark gray. But they are all using the same vocabulary, which is how we set up the construction with the brick and how we put the grille and the ornamentation. So here is the light gray in front of the canal. The red, more inside, just by a little square from the city hall. Here we can see the detail of the vocab I just talked about, the grille, and this ornamentation. For the little story, nobody knew how hard it would be to do that, and none of us, the client or even the builder, and it took a little bit more time than we expected, but everybody was happy about the result, so we all forgot about the delay. And that's the third one, the dark gray, which is more in front and linked with the garden. So we make sure that all the habitation would have an outside from the basement to the top floor. So facing the garden, people have balcony or terrace. And when we are on the public spaces, more urban, we are with a loggia, which give a little bit more privacy. And of course the entrance, because we like to walk the entrance of the building, because this is where we first have an impression when we go inside. And in this one, it's a lot of light, a lot of natural light, and the terrazzo also. And here we can have the picture of the garden, and we were very lucky on this project because we already have three, and we succeed to maintain them during the construction, and it's a big plus because it looked like the garden was always there, and it's a very pleasant feeling. And here we have the picture of the building with the environment, and the Grand Moulin that is not on the picture, but the Grand Moulin are just here, so it's quite an obvious connection. And this antique building, who was a refurbishment, is also in brick. Another project in the north of Paris, in the area 20. It's a very dense program, and we make it with another architect team called Chartier d'Alix. And the program is mixed use, 240 studios for young working people and migrant people, and also on the basement, a kindergarten. So this program, which is quite dense, we use the material to make it a urban landmark. So we are just by the peripheric, So if you remember, I told you the HBM, the old social building in Paris, were in brick. So it was also obvious for us to use this material, but this time we mix it with another material. And the density of this program made a building with a funny shape, because we have to follow all the boundary. So we have quite an angle that is quite squeezed, and we have 9th floor. So here is the program with the kindergarten on the basement, all the studio, the 240 studio, and here in the middle, all the communal space. So we thought, okay, we need to breathe. We need to make something to make this project breathe. So we decided to cut the building in the horizontal with the communal program, and we make also a vertical shape, a vertical opening to bring some light inside the building. So that's how we put the two materiality, and that's how we use the property of these two materiality. So the brick that was quite dark and quite vibrant, but also everything that was sculpted inside, it's in copper. Light that give a lot of light and a lot of reflection, and it have a different color. It was more yellowish, and it was what we like with this material, the copper. It's shiny, and this program is very social, and we wanted to bring a bit of a lightness and something a bit
Luxurious.
Not luxury, but something that give a bit of une étincelle. Étincelle. So here we are in the restaurant. So we can see the copper, which is inside all the 3rd floor, and it covers the roof, and it gives this brightness. Here is the commune terrace. We were not allowed to give terrace to the studio, so we choose to put a commune terrace. And on this plan, you can see how we organize this 3rd floor. So in fact, the program is so dense that the normal floor is very efficient. It's strict, everything is square, and it have to be very efficient. So we thought on the 3rd floor, which is the communal floor, we want to try to blur this and to make something with more vibration. And that's the basement with the kindergarten. Then after, when we build, after the delivery of the building, we came back with a photographer, and the photographer spent almost a week, and he lived in the building a week, and he had some meeting with people who were there, and he gave us a nice report of picture, how people would live there, and how they use the communal space, and how they use their own space. And there was even a baby that just arrived, so we were quite happy to see that even some little people would experiment this building. And what was interesting for us is all the apartments are the same. There are 23 square meters, which is quite small, but everybody tried to give a proper identity to his apartment and put a lot of energy to make it his own space. and at the entrance where we try to make it nice and generous, and the kindergarten to finish with some little kids. So this building for us was very important with the material because it was a bit of a signal in this area, which is it's a difficult area, the 20, and we wanted that the people that were living here were proud to live there, even if the program was quite dense.
Yes, and here we want to show you another scale, also social housing. We are in 14 family apartments. We are now in the 10th district, where we can find another neighbor, Faubourian neighbor, smaller place, small windows. So we wanted to create a building which was connecting to the context in a simple way. So that's why we create in the boundary we have two existing buildings, and we wanted to connect the two roof to create this connection, and we resolved this connection. So with thanks to the material who was concrete, prefabricated concrete, we can do an inclinated facade in 3 parts, you know, tac, 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 tac. And so that was the answer to this housing project, where we can where we have 2 sizes for the different sizes for the windows. We keep the language of the street with this smaller windows, and in the other side, in the south side, we are more open. We are open to the garden, and we have also all the exterior places. Of course, of course not, but we were lucky because also there was a nice tree where that give us another view of the space. So the idea of this project was to have 2 languages, and we have the 2 languages here on the right. We have the language of the windows of the street, and in the other side we have the language of the opening where the opening to the garden. Also, we have a nice terrace with a view to the roof of Paris, and here a picture to resume the work that we made with this facade in 3 plans.
I just want to add on this picture that it might look that it was easy, but when I don't know if you remember, Miguel, but when the company came with the pieces of prefabricated concrete and they put the inclinated one, it was quite challenging.
Yes. Yeah. But it looks nice at the end. Very nice. Another similar size of project is we're still in Paris, in the north of Paris, in the 19 area district. This 17 family apartments. We are in an hybrid district. That means that every building was different in the environment. So we have building of the 70s, oldies, Faubourian. So it was hard to create a real connection. So it was the boundary, finally the boundary, who was in triangle, that give us the solution. And we can see in the principal, in the front elevation, that this triangle shape make this graduation on the principal facade that gives also the exterior places. So we have this principal facade, and on the side we have a more calm facade that keep the link with the Faubourian language. I mean, that mean the windows and the shutter that they were also there. This kind of project where we try to reach a simple image identity of the building, which was why to create like a lightness building. So we wanted to also to show the building materials of the building. That's why we try to keep the concrete visible in all the public, the common spaces of the buildings. So that's the entrance, but we tried, and we do it also in the staircase, where it was good to have this sensation of materiality of construction.
And also on this building, at the beginning, the companies, they were not super happy about our idea. But then after, when it started to build and it started to be finished, they were very proud of their work. And this is something that we really like, when we can take with us the company and we can motivate them, and they are as happy as us to achieve the details that we draw.
Yes. That she means this kind of detail that it was on the estate, that it was not easy to do, but they really wanted to do after in all the buildings. Oh, and so there is a view of the room, the living room, where we can see also the panel that complete the protection of the facade, the metallic skin of the facade. And
on this project, the materiality was used to link the past and the present. So this project is a nursery home for old people, and it's 94 bed, and it's a refurbishment and an extension. And it's also in the 20 in Paris. So that's the building that was built in the 70s, and the building was too old comfort to the security and the comfort. So we had to destroy all the facade. So that was the fun part of the job, to destroy. But after, we have to we find a lot of complicated trouble. And the first trouble we find is there was amiante a lot. And then we finally achieved this building with also the brick, because we find some brick just in fact the building in front was in brick also, and it allowed us to make a little an oblique shape, and for us it was to like a remembrance of the past shape. It was just a subtle remembrance of the balcony, and we work on a special brick that is made specially for this project. So we can see on the detail, it's made on a special angle. And also we work on mouche arabier, which allow to let the light come into the building, but it gives privacy for the people inside. So we can see the detail here. And the inside of this building, which is a nursery home for all people, we really try to work on the material to take away this clinical aspect, and we wanted to make it like a comfort home, like a small apartment, but we really wanted not to have this hospital feeling. So we bring a lot of wood, and we work a lot with the light and with some soft color. And it works because we came back there, and the people who live there appreciate it, but also the people who work there, all the nurses, they say that it's nice not to have a strong light and to have aggressive luminosity. We were lucky. There was also a garden in this project, on this boundary, and we work on this little garden, and we succeed to make some little bench and some little seating, and we make it through a little path for the people who live there.
Yes, and yes, to finish, I think we were, of course, right now we are trying to develop new materials and new buildings, and that's why we wanted to finish the presentation with this. We are looking to, of course, like remedy errors, reuse, looking for reuse brick, for raw earth bricks, and of course in the objective to reduce our footprint in the construction. And I think that also that we are trying right now in Paris, we are pushed by the city to find the better combination that could resolve this economic, social, and material question. And in that sense, we were trying also this concrete earth project where we put it in the column on the facade, and that we can find in this 9-story building of office building in the north. It's a competition in the north of France, in the city of Rennes. We were trying also to develop concrete earth in walls that we put in that we work with in a pavilion for a champagne enterprise called Ruinart in the city of Rennes. And finally, we wanted to show also this project in the north of Paris, in Pantin, where we find this raw earth brick. Then we find the reuse brick. We find also the ram earth in the walls in the house of the garden to improve the quality of the environment of this place, and also to change a little bit, to change all the identity of the neighbor. And it was also the idea to show this is that maybe there is a link with the first image of the presentation, where we talk about the Carpathians in Turkey, and we are close to this. We're bringing this kind of vernacular area to the city, and for us was also to put the question for the next step. So we are using reuse, recycle, decarbonize construction. It will be the next for all of us.
So the question is, it would keep going, this materiality and this identity, and we will see what would come soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel and Christelle. We are very happy that to get such a precise and concise lecture on material identity, because I think material can be, of course, expanded very much in many directions. And I would like to ask you also a question before we open the round, I hope, with the students and colleagues here. When you look at the brick especially, but also the other materials you were showing at the last moment now, like rammed earth, there's always this double discourse. One is on the material as substance, and you started with the images in the beginning very much of massive construction. You had monolithic construction, you had massive wood there also, and then you showed concrete. And rammed earth is also of such a material, but on the other hand, you talk about ornamentation a lot. You speak a lot about surfaces, and in a very conscious way. You don't use them decoratively, you use them like the copper or brass for light effects. You use them when you use 3 different bricks, and you also use them in a relief. You use them in order to create identity, also through the material as cladding. There it's cladding, it's not substantial, right? And so it's a completely different thing. And the whole issue that you mentioned now at last also, the question of sustainability and decarbonization, of course, is always somehow a fight with the brick, because the brick, for instance, and also the concrete, is not by nature a material that is very sustainable unless it's used for hundreds and hundreds of years in place and not being turned down again. Which is an option, of course, if you look at Vienna, a city that has been built in brick largely, and you don't see it, but it's in brick, and it's there, and it will be staying. So basically, that's also sustainable. Now my question would be, how do you see the next years to come also for your practice when it comes to this argument, surfaces, ornamentation, and creating identity through the visual morphology of a city on the one hand, versus creating identity through substance, construction, and sustainable approaches that might be less visible after all? I'm really curious to hear your thought about this, because this will be a challenge, I think.
So, of course, we need to be more humble now, even more, and we need to use the material and to know it very well, to be able to sculpt it and to use it in the most efficient way. And all the new projects that we have right now, the competition, we reduce the ornamentation and we try to give an identity. It's more the way we set up the material, and in fact they are going to be very sober, but it can give also an aesthetic that because we know we are also doing the good, we are going to in the good direction. I mean, we try, that give also a quality to the building to be somehow not more simple but more efficient. So it's more going towards the efficiency of the material, if I'm clear.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mention that and not minimalism as an approach, because or reduction, because I think just building less or building simple, or all these things that are also kind of a trend now, might not solve the problem. And a new kind of eco-fundamentalism that goes against the ornament is not very interesting either. We have had this all already, and it seems so uninteresting to just put the battle between the two lines. So in that sense, how to make ornament and all the questions of material identity on the visual level compatible with approaches that are also sustainable, I think is actually interesting. When you don't you don't state it as a battle, but you rather state it as like a consciousness, no? And a way of being somehow, as you say, efficient, which means for me to make the materials very performative. Yes. You know, each material in their own way, make them very performative and really try to understand them. And this is also very much what brings us, I think, to the cooperation with construction firms like Wienerberger, who we don't want to work with only because they help us invite guest professors, which is good that they do. We also want to do research with them because they, for instance, develop bricks right now that are self-insulating, with which you can build walls without any added mineral wool or anything. At the same time, those bricks are not are not bricks you can make visible yet. They're invisible bricks. They're the ones that you put behind basically other materials. So what would be interesting to also develop together with firms like Wienerberger and others is exactly this idea: can those materials become visible once again? Can they create their own kind of ornament? As exposed concrete, which was a material invisible once, then it became also visible, like and you showed examples. Now again it will disappear probably because it's not sustainable. And the question is, how can this relation between visibility and invisibility be managed? And I would find that an interesting question for especially you who work with these effects, surface effects I would call it also.
We also, more and more in the new building, try to, as you say, make it visible. So, for example, in the new project that we have, we want to show the materiality inside. So if we use some hemp, some wood, we want to show it, we want to be proud of it, and we don't have to hide it, and it's part of the new aesthetic of inside apartment or house or an equipment. So we want to work on this and also leave the natural color, and that would give the noblesse of the space.
I think, well, I don't have the answer, but I think that maybe a line of answer can be also to remain that a building has also his construction laws. I mean, come back to think about how it, the structure of the building, to show it, and to make a link to the, think about the gravity. I mean, what is the thing that make this building be higher or not? So this kind of structure that can be visible, and how we this transparency of working on it. Maybe it's a way that can guide us to show the materials that we are gonna put on it. Right.
Thank you for your really profound lecture, and then also your thoughts now, the discussion. I think it's incredible to see you speaking so much about the identity. I think it's really important, especially in social housing, and how you are creating that. And what I have noticed, of course, you started your lecture that you are creating it with the envelope, no? With the material. You were also, what it was profound, at least for me, was that you were speaking all the time about emotions, building versus a building, and emotions as a user or resident walking into the buildings. And I think this somehow marked the moment that, yes, there is an identity on the outside, first with the buildings that you showed, with the envelope, that it's material and profound, and it either holds memory, history, or which in each situation a different one. And that, I think, it was very unique and very important. You also showed that it is today still important to speak about the identity of all those residents, 240 or 17. I think that, and also the fact that this kind of public entrances into the building, they are equally public as the facade, basically. I think that was incredible. But what you just discussed, and I think it's interesting, and also your 3 last renders that you showed, to me it seems that you are trying to create identity now, of course, material identity, but to the material of the structure, so that the structure actually becomes the envelope and builds the identity through the material and the way you are using either the office tower or the Champagne pavilion. It was actually, so you use the same principle. You still think what you see, it's something that you need to reflect on. It's not pure form, it's not the way, and you are very careful how you shape things with understanding the material that you are shaping things with. And I think this is maybe also an important topic to discuss. But it was interesting for me to see how all the 3 last projects are building the material identity through the material of the structure itself, not the envelope. Maybe comment.
Maybe this is a strength of experience. Then after, when we get a little bit of experience, we can play a bit more because we know the material, so it allows us to have a bit of a playground, and we know the quality and the property of the material, and that allows us to open even more the possible, I think.
I agree. I just wanted to add that right now I feel that there is a very nice moment for the architecture because we have many constraints to resolve, but also new ways to found. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys wanna do in 10 years, you know, because right now it's yeah, we can play, we can test many things. And we don't know how it's gonna work. We don't know the truth. Yeah, and also I think this kind of change can also, of course, impact the cities that we know. That I believe that in 10 years or 20 years, it's gonna be a nice. I don't know, but a change, a new image.
I want to also make you a compliment about the photography of your projects. One thing I noticed is you have quite often persons in the photographs. That's not very usual as architecture photography. And it doesn't look like staffage also, because this is also dangerous, this kind of Photoshop effect of people in photographs. But it looks, of course, staged, but staged in a conscious way, in a way that artist photographers would use it, or do it. So it doesn't look staged in this kind of a commercial way. And I find that very interesting because this is something we always have a doubt how to make this work, how to have people in your buildings actually being documented, because the building starts living with persons in there, of course, subjectively more than objectively. So basically, it's always a reflection and not really the thing, but through this kind of very artificial staging, and you introduced us with your argument with the photography of the nude by Helmut Newton in front of the city. So you actually, this very artificial moment of staging was already part also of your conceptual introduction. I found that quite interesting. Do you have any or a particular relationship to photography? Is there who are the people you work with also in that sense?
So we start with a building in Les Lilas because it was a building made by two agencies. So because we were two, we thought, okay, let's take two photographers. And so we took one classical photographer who make this kind of picture, nice, like the building is finished, we are happy, everything is nice. But then after we were thinking, where are the people? Like it's going to be full of life. So then we had the idea to take another photographer, which is called Mir Muratet. He's an architecture photographer and not also architecture. But he gave us the idea to live in the building for a few days and to spend time with the people and to make a kind of report, architecture report. And we were like, wow, that's why we built this building, to have people we want to know if it works or not. So first of all, he told us it works, like the space. So we were like, okay, that's good. We were happy to know that we did all this work for something. And also, all the room, they were we have hundreds of pictures of him, and all the rooms are different, and it was interesting for us to see how people were living there. So then after this experience, we were thinking, okay, we want to see how our building live. So we always try to come back. We make a session before people arrive, but we also like to make a session when people live there, because it's the truth. It's how people, and whatever, if they put some furniture we don't like or whatever, this is the truth of the life of the building. So So because of this experiment, we like to do that. And I think it's nice to see how it evolves, how it takes life.
So now we will.
Okay.
Thank you, Christelle. I really like this. It's something eye-opener, really, in terms of architecture photography. Living in the building. The photographer has to live in the building. So this is something to remember for all of us. Huh? I haven't heard.
It's not always easy.
I know. I know about an artist photographer who does this actually. She doesn't photograph architecture, but people. And the way to get to do this, she lives with them for a while, and after a week or two, they forget that she's there, and then she starts really photographing it. So until then, she basically does it without film. But it's a process of really becoming almost a part of the people. However, I would like to ask who has questions to ask, so we will bring you the mic. I'm sure there are some. There is one. I will go.
Okay, so I have a question. You touched a bit, and Professor Gregoric also talked a bit about the emotions that are being evoked through the use of materiality. And you also talked a bit in the beginning, especially about the relation between the use of materiality and the place where the building is built. Can you maybe talk a bit about the relation between the use of materiality and the place where you're building? Because, for example, here in Vienna, or in this part of Europe especially, the use of brick, because you're building a lot of brick, is not that common as it is, for example, in Paris or in Western Europe. Do you feel like, for example, the use of brick that is shown on the facade would be also suitable in Vienna here, for example?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So yes, it's a subject that we take care now even more than before. So when we built this building, we were conscious that it was produced from Europe, and now we make more and more research for material that are even closer and from the area. And for example, we are doing a project in Nantes. It's on the same line of Paris, but in the west, and we are working with hemp, and we try to find a local company for the construction and for the hemp, and also we have some study with rock, with facade in rock. And same work, we try to find some company that are local and from the same area. Is it a question, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, for sure. Goes the right direction. Vienna is the city of bricks in terms of the structure. Yes. And Wienerberger, it's basically one generous part of the south part of Vienna. But the bricks are very rarely in Vienna visible because it's the most normal, let's say, facade from the imperial times where the most construction was going on. It's actually the render. So the question is, do you see, since your projects were done, you were always speaking, okay, on that side the project speaks to those buildings, that for is the brick. Do you think even if Vienna, now you spend some time in this city, is an opportunity to use the brick also on the facade? And if so, how so?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So yes, it gives us another visibility of the work, and also, I don't know if I still well understand the question, but the other day I went to a restaurant in Vienna, and as I came in, the floor was Wienerberger bricks, and I was very proud because we went to visit the company the day before, and they show me the antique brick with the logo. So I think it's 100 years ago. And when I came inside the building, like I could recognize the logo that was there. So yes, I was thinking it's so great to give a visibility to the material and to be able to see it also from inside, even if it's the structure, and it was, in this case, it was the floor. And so I think, I think it gives me the desire to show even more.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I have a question. Yeah, you have
Is,
to-
okay, Lorenzo. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Okay, thank you very much for the interesting lecture. And I would like to connect to this question of materiality and urban, the city, the urban. So my impression is that you use bricks also because it's a very urban material. And it has to do with the European city and so on. In Vienna, there's a discussion now about whether one can use wood as an urban material. And you used wood in your suburban project. What is your take on this? Do you think there is a scope for using wood as in an urban context, a European urban city?
First of all, in our early period, we refused to use wood because it doesn't. We use the wood in the countryside, but we saw some projects in Paris that were made in wood, and it didn't age very well. So we were not very in favor of wood, but. First, we grew up, we had more experience about material, and now we start to explore the wood, but more inside the structure. And so, in this way, we can show the wood, but inside the apartment, on the ceiling, on the wall, on the floor. But on the outside, we are still using some other material because we think it's more, it's for the durability, it's easier to have another material.
Is the question only about the durability or also about the identity, since that was your question?
Yes, and about the identity, there's the way the Faubourian buildings are made in Paris, it's a wood structure. So we link with the identity of the building construction in Paris. So it have wood structure. In between the bin, you have, in the Faubourian building, you have the leftover rock, the leftover building from before the demolition. So it's kind of garbage. And on the outside, we have coated paint. That's the Faubourian culture. So we have no trouble to maintain and to keep doing this kind of structure with outside coat painting. But we don't really have an identity of wood outside in Paris.
Yeah, just to add that, as I told before, the city right now in Paris, they're pushing all the architects to find durability project, and the wood is it's also take part on this decision, but always it is in the structure. So yeah, because of the durability, yeah, it is always hidden by something, and yeah, that's today what we are pushed to do in Paris.
But basically it means you don't think that you can use wood as a facade.
But yes, we can. Yes, we can. And if we have the opportunities, the budget, because in fact, we have no trouble to make a building with a wood facade. It can be very elegant and very nice. And even if in his area it's not there, but then we need to have the budget that go with it, because to make a nice building that keep a long time. So for me, a building that keep a long time, it's also environmental important. We need the budget. So if we have the budget, yes, we would do it. Yes, with pleasure.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. As one part of you is from South America, too, I wanted to ask your comment or maybe future projects that could be realized in South America, especially with the use of brick in Chile or other parts of South America. Do you have a comment on that or some notion?
So the question is that if we have projects in South America, it would be on brick? No, that's
Genau.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, in South America there is a big tradition of brick. So yeah, maybe this we make some brick project because unconscious we have this material in the mind. I don't know. Maybe it's that. And yeah, of course, if we have the possibility, yeah, you can find right now so many nice projects in Argentina, Uruguay, Ecuador, Mexico, and so yeah, there is a real culture of this brick. Not in the same way, because also we, I'm from Chile, so there is a seismic area, so we have something different, but yes, absolutely, it can be also in brick. But South America doesn't have the same regulation in that Europe, so there are less regulation, and we can also try other materials. That's why we have this old this school of tradition school of concrete also. Well, not in Chile, but in Brazil, you can see that. So great buildings with well, nice shape in concrete. So yeah, there are many possible to do there.
But what Miguel doesn't say is we have a project in Chile and it's in wood.
Yes, sorry.
Great.
But
Thank you.
It's in the forest.
Another question, maybe?
Do you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for the lecture. It was really interesting. I have a pretty straightforward question. So your facades are mostly in brick, so that's like what we see. But what is actually the core construction? What material do you mostly use? Is it also brick or is it concrete or? So for the construction, the material.
So on the project we show you, it was concrete, insulation and brick. On the project we are studying right now, it's more brick construction, and so the facade would be brick, but it's more the revelation of what is inside. But also we choose, I think we choose 7 projects in brick, but we also have some other projects that are not brick.
Yeah, I've, just as a comment, I find that interesting that you're kind of developing into showing the construction, because in a way when we have a facade that's so different than the core construction, it's kind of like a clothing for the building that's not actually showing what it is. So I find the direction you're developing really interesting, but that's just a comment, no question.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, first of all. I would like to say that I really like the beginning with this reflection about the ornament, because Alberti used to say that the ornament of a city, it's really important for the citizens because you feel part of a community by an ornament being part of the choir. So, and I really like that you try to fit into the choir of Paris, which I think it's uncommon for the new architecture of Paris, especially in the 13th. I have the impression that these buildings want to sing, but they on their own music. So it's I found it really gentle and just trying to be part of this choir. And then my question was about the bricks on the facade, because I was thinking that a facade made by concrete is not the same by bricks, because there is a human person that has to put these bricks. So I was thinking in terms of economical terms, whether you had to fight to use the brick, or would it be an argument to say it costs too much because I have to pay somebody that has to place it, instead of having, for example, a concrete facade that would be, I guess, easier than having to justice people that would construct it. So, thank you.
So, for example, on this project, we didn't, I mean, we were maybe a bit slow, but we didn't realize that not only people have to put brick by brick, but every brick you put, you have to think about where to put the brick. So we all, the client, the architect, the company, we all lose a bit of money for the building. So it was a share mistake, and I think we were a bit lucky, because if we would, the client would have to pay the real price, I think this building would never exist. So
Thank you.
Another question? Perfect.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I think my question would be more about colors in materials. So especially when I see this project now, like I love how you use materiality as a structure or texture-wise, like playing with like going back and forth a bit. But the first question that comes to mind is like, where's the color in a sense? Like, because I feel like especially when I look at buildings that are built now, it's a lot of like focusing, okay, let's reduce the materiality palette that we have. And in a way, I also feel like this reduces often like the colors that are in use in architecture. So what's your take on this? I felt like when you said like in this elderly home, you wanted to make it a bit, give a bit of liveliness to it by using wood and different colors in the inside to not have like this hospital air feeling. And how do you say, like, how does this reflect on like the outside facade when you build a project like this? How do you keep these facades lively by using colors, maybe?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you think you can make it
yeah,
in another way?
The question is maybe what what role does color play in your projects, like on the especially in the facade?
What's the role of the color?
Yeah, like in the
Okay.
materiality.
Yeah. For example, in this building, we choose 3 colors. It was to bring a bit of diversity and to bring about the identity, to give a special identity to each building, because it's not a big project, but still it's almost like 100 apartments, and we thought that if we wanted to give a special feeling to each building, something a bit unique, we had to choose something a bit different, because we make some rule. We're gonna build with a grilled and with an ornamentation. So we thought we had to change a little bit something, not too much, but a little bit, to give something unique to the building. Because in France, we are suffering a lot of the big construction and of the big social housing. We are suffering a bit of this, and we don't want to do the same mistake again. And so we really want to make the construction that give a quality for the habitant. We want the people who live there to be proud. So that's why we try to change a little bit the building and the color.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No?
So thank you very much for your lecture. I'd like to add on these two questions about materiality. First we discussed the brick, then Lorenzo brought in the wood. And as I understood, the last three projects that you showed were a mixture of rammed earth and concrete. So I would like to ask, what's your interest on that shift from the clay that is treated with heat to become the brick, but then the clay which is treated with concrete to become this material that you showed in the last three projects. Also, I understood all the three projects are not built yet.
No.
So that's maybe a strong interest that you are doing your research on. So what's your thoughts on this possibility of
As you say,
material?
it's a kind of research. So we try new material. We try. We have some other projects that are still in competition where we use the reused brick. It's difficult because we have to talk with the client and convince them that we need to do that, and it's gonna look as good as a brand new brick, and it's gonna give an identity of a good environmental building. And on the raw earth brick, it's still in research, and we are working with companies that made the brick, and it's still in research. And of course, that's why we put some balcony to protect the material from the rain, from the outside aggression. And the basement would be in a different material, more resistant to have a bigger perennity. And the concrete earth, this is something we try, but we are not in construction yet. But we are looking, we try, we look. There's also the wood structure. So as Miguel said, this is an experiment playground, and we are trying a bit everything to find the good one, the assemblage that will be the most eco, kind of.
Other questions there?
Thank you for presentation and showing us all the nice projects and designs you made. As far as I understood, most of your structures, like the load-bearing structures, are made in concrete. So I was wondering if you were considering topics or aspects like CO2 balances and gray energy in your design, and how you're dealing with those topics, or if you're counting on that they will figure out by the longevity and durability of the buildings, or how do you think you're going to deal with those aspects to make it also ecological, sustainable, and not just like social-wise?
So yes, a lot of the buildings are in concrete, but not all. The first house we show you, it's a brick structure, and at the moment, at the time, we didn't show the construction material, but this house, it's a brick construction, and about all the one inside Paris, it's in concrete because this is also a big lobby in France. A wig, that's all they know. So when we were younger, we follow what the experience of the building company was telling us. So we did it in concrete. But now, like with the experience, we can drive and we can force a bit more towards another way of making the structure. Of course, we have to find a balance between the ecologic and the budget. But so, for example, in an operation with 4 or 5 buildings, we try to have one in wood, one in earth, raw earth, and we have to make some concession, and we have to make some building just in concrete. And so it's a balance of economic and us knowing more and forcing a bit more towards the environment.
It's just like, if you know the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, like by the United Nations, I'm just wondering, it seems like you're not really considering ecological aspects of sustainability, right? So I was wondering if you really think about or calculate things like when does the whole building amortize the whole energy consumption and CO2 binding? Because to me, it seems like you're putting a mask on the building, right? Like you're using facing tiles and show bricks, but in the end, the structure itself is concrete, which is not sustainable.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, no problem. Because it's good to evolve, and but in Paris, a few years ago, there was a day, it was 42 degrees, and we went to this building, it was almost finished, and the thickness of the building is not nothing that, it doesn't count on the calculation, but I can tell you when it's, when the temperature is hot, there's a difference inside the building with the wall here have a thickness of 45, and compared to a normal building of 30, there was, I mean, this special day of 42 degrees, there was a difference. So yes, it doesn't go inside the calculation, but we should take it in consideration because it gives inertia to the building. That's what I notice, what I experiment myself. It's not a calculation, but I experiment it.
We have to also be careful with the calculations because, as we all know, we only believe the statistics that we falsified ourselves. So basically, all these calculations are totally debatable. You can calculate CO2 in a in very strange ways. Also, if you think about wood construction, if it's there for 500 years, I will agree. Wood is probably the most sustainable material, but we haven't seen any wood constructions that hold 500 years easily. So usually, they are there for 25, maybe 50 years. Then they become firewood, and then that's CO2. So the embodied CO2 in another material, that takes steel, that you can recycle about hundreds of times the same beam, can hold thousands of years basically, might actually be worth it. So the question how you calculate these things is always a bit debatable, and I think our politicians right now are hunting us with this idea that concrete is evil and wood is good, and that's very simple. It's very simple, but it will not work on the long run if you really have to build. And then there is also the argument of the client. As an architect, you're not alone. You have a client, and the client needs to finance the whole thing. And the client might actually ask you to do it in wood construction and then the prices that come back from the market are just so horrible right now in wood construction, because everyone wants that they say we cannot afford it. Please make an alternative in concrete. And you say, no, we don't want. And they say, okay, then I will ask someone else to do it. So then the question is, shall we go on strike? You know, for what ideals also then? And then is the question is, can also concrete become, with the recycled concrete and so on, can it become more sustainable once again? So I think the argument is so complex that it's not enough to make the math or do the math and then say this building is and this building isn't decarbonized. That was my basic question at the beginning, and I think it's so complex that it actually becomes interesting once again. It's a very, very interesting moment right now where all of us can again be part of a debate. 10 years ago, it was so simple. Concrete did everything, and if you as an architect try to do it differently, you needed a millionaire, billionaire client basically to do it. Social housing with other materials than concrete or cheap brick was simply not possible, simply not. We all tried it. You didn't find anyone who would build it. You couldn't convince a politician of spending the extra money on it. Now you can. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And especially, and this would be a question of mine about your position in Paris, because in my experience, the only social housing project that my office is doing where we use massive stone and wood construction is in Paris. So Paris, for me, seems like a great place right now where actually culturally you can do things like that. In Austria or Germany, I think it's very, very problematic, very difficult. Here the concrete lobby is still much stronger than in Paris, apparently. But it's also strong there. And what I find when I look at your work is that and you also mentioned this, the way it kind of tries to be very conscious and reflective, it somehow is a new way also of doing architecture that you wouldn't have seen 10, 20 years ago in Paris. It seemed more about somehow more extreme. And we all like Jean Nouvel, and we all, of course, like even very strange and interesting people like Edouard François, people like that, because they have somehow this extra level of cultural interest and excitement that we really like. It's kind of built philosophy sometimes. But now it seems that in Paris the new possibilities arise for very kind of straightforward, almost simple architecture that is still elegant or well thought. And this is how I would describe your projects. And my question would be, is that a new school? Is that somehow a new environment in which you are a part or you're part of? Or is this, does this come from the teachings of people like Lacaton Vassal, who simplified the debate a bit in terms of performativity of an architecture or in forms? Or what is this new simplicity, let's call it like this, about? Or maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, for sure we were influenced by Lacaton Vassal during our study, because they were, at the time, they were giving a very good image of the architecture, and also they were giving us a very good image of the people taking care of the people who live inside. So for us, during the studies, it was as much important to take care of the people than to take care of the building. And of course, it makes a whole building, but it's that's what Miguel calls the sensibility. How do we live inside the building? It's most important than what is outside somehow. So that's a bit how we grow in architecture.
By the way, that's also a way of being sustainable, of course, because if people really can live in architecture for a very long time, and very many people can live in there, then the sustainability lies in the fact that you don't have to tear the building down every 25 or 50 years. And that's also a difference. Huh?
That they are proud. I think you use the term that they are proud to live in your buildings. Yeah. And I think this gives them like a different relationship to the architecture, and therefore it becomes long-lasting and ecological from this perspective, because they somehow grow together with the building in which they are, because they respect it in so many ways.
Because during our study, we went to visit a lot of social housing, and we saw a lot of disaster, and we, as an architect, we feel responsible of this, because we were thinking like we we want to try to improve this quality of living, and this is how we were a bit raised at school.
I agree. I think the question about this kind of architecture right now in Paris, maybe it's the response is the sobriety as a response to manage all the contract that we have right now, not only durability, economy, and politics of the client, because I think that the experience show us that we have to make some choice in the project to keep the quality of the project until the end, and maybe that I would try to keep always is the thing is what is the generosity in the project. I mean, is the space, is the materiality, what is the final generosity that we want to keep when you have a client, an objective, a planning, and so yeah. And finally, the result is this kind of sobriety that resolve maybe this equation.
And just one more thing about your question that I find very interesting about the environment. All the calculation also doesn't take care of how, like for example, right now it changes every month, but right now the most eco building that we experiment, it's wood structure and coat painting outside. But we don't know how much it costs to every 5 years, every 10 years to rebuild the coat. You have the pollution of the truck, you have the pollution of the... So this calculation, it's not super exact, because like if you have a building in rock, then the rock doesn't need to be painting or to be washed. So I completely agree with Wilfried. We have to be careful with the number, because I feel that there's also some lobby behind this that try to drive us towards what they want, and what they want, it's a cheap building. So. No. Yeah, no, but it's very interesting, because we are all trying to find the best solution, and we don't know yet. We will see in few years, but we have to try, for sure. We have to try. Yeah. Of course, no, I agree.
Yeah, but I think we also learned, your first buildings looked like wood, but where they were brick. Then your buildings look like brick, but where they're concrete. And now your buildings look like hemp, and they are hemp, right?
We are a bit confused.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Christelle and Miguel. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you.